Jeff Ritzman.
Jeremy Vaeni.
Audience. Hello.
Hello.
Well, Jeff, here we are, many years later.
Yeah. How we doing this time?
I don't know. I before, arguably, we were ahead of our time, but I think now maybe we're just like right on time. Why are we back? Why are we here? Why are we doing this?
Glutton for punishment, I believe. It's the word we're looking for here. Glutton for punishment.
Yes. Well, everybody out there, welcome back to Paratopia. Rumors of our death have been greatly exaggerated. As you may know, Jeff moved on and did Paranormal Waypoint after our Paratopia podcast, and I much later went on to do the Experience podcast, which I'm still doing. And I think, Jeff, are you still doing Paranormal Waypoint now and then?
I am, but highly sporadic. I started doing Paranormal Waypoint Emergent, which was on Twitch, for lack of a better way to put it, was more along the lines of a book giveaway and an artwork giveaway. Did a couple of those, and but as far as doing a podcast, quote unquote, no, I really haven't. I did one after I left the dump that was KGRA.
No. Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, well, there you are.
Okay, and I am currently doing the Experience at unknowncountry.com. And so in that show, I mainly interview experiencers. And I think we all sort of remember, perhaps, that with Paratopia, I probably you, I think it's fair to say, but definitely I was feeling like I was kind of done interviewing other types of folks, so-called experts and that sort of thing. So to me, it makes sense to interview experiencers, but it also makes sense, I think, at this point to re-inject ourselves back into the conversation together because let's face it, there's nothing out there. We've heeded the call. We've heard from people saying, please come back. There's nothing like that show out there. So, all right.
I mean, I think we collectively, we've talked to a number of quote unquote experts over what now, 7 years, 8 years? I mean, close to that anyway, between our separate podcast, Paratopia, then our separate podcast again. I mean, I think what I said at the end of Paranormal Waypoint kind of rings true, that you just run out of people that you feel are worthy enough to bring to your audience. And I think it's what Paratopia, that happened there, and I think that is in the end what happens to most podcasts. It's either you repeat, which becomes boring and monotonous, or you just plain out say, this is not enough for my audience that I respect and that I want to bring something new to.
Right.
So henceforth we're back.
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, the thing that we've heard from people, and I'm arrogant enough to feel, is that they like hearing us. They like hearing from us and our theories and that sort of thing. So, that's great. That thankfully, that caters to us not getting guests. So with this incarnation of Paratopia, we will have guests now and then, but it's mainly going to be us spitballing some theories, riffing off of our experiences, riffing off of research that's out there in paranormal world.
Yeah.
Right. And sort of getting deeper into it. I know that when I left, I felt like I didn't really have anything to say much anymore. And having had a couple of years off and then talking to experiencers on the other show, I feel like new things, new insights and new sort of aha moments and possibilities are coming to mind. But let's face it, I don't have anyone to bounce them off of because there's only you, Jeff. There's only you. So for my money, it just makes sense to trap you in a room and pick your brain about them.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, from my standpoint, when I left Paranormal Waypoint, I kind of walked away from all this stuff and left it, I guess, temporarily behind. You know how you walk away from this stuff every now and then to have normal life, the wife, the kids, the dogs, and the picket fence. So I kind of did that, and let's face it, that's all boring crap. And no, I kid, of course.
Don't tell the dogs.
Right. All right. Don't tell the dogs, indeed. But, we did Project Core. I think that kind of fried us both a little bit. And we did Radio Mysterioso with Greg Bishop and Banal of America with Tim Banal. We did those two shows, and pretty much, I kind of tabled everything as far as public, interaction went. I didn't really, like you, I didn't feel like I really had a whole lot to say, and just kind of went to normalcy. And then I got this bright idea to start trying to throw myself into anti-structural behavior and see what would happen with moderate results, I guess. And that's been going off and on for a few months. So, yeah, I think we've just gotten enough emails. We've gotten enough emails to say, yeah, maybe we should go back to do this. But I think you're going to talk a little about the caveats to this program.
The caveats. Well,
Yes.
Yeah, the first caveat, as I said, or I guess sort of format change, is that it is not strictly you and I, it is mainly you and I talking for hours and hours on end. And to that end, if people would like to send us ideas, if they have topics that they'd like to hear us talk about, then, feel free to do that. And especially, I think we're going to try to keep our Facebook page active, because it's been active all these years. So why not put it to good use? So if you're on Facebook, certainly write to us any of your ideas there, or the myriad ways there are to contact us. I'm sure there will be a contact thing on here. We still have a Paratopia podcast at gmail.com. So
Yes.
email us there if you like. This will be a kid-friendly show? ? We're not going to be swearing in this. We're not going to be even doing comedy bits and all of that. And I know you Stephen Greer fans out there are sorely disappointed in that, but we're just going with a new program model. This is the, as I was just joking before, this is not Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. This is Mark Wahlberg. This is, we're trying to grow up. Are we trying to grow up? Is that what we're doing? We're trying to be mature. We're trying to bring this to a new audience. Because, well, and then the other thing is, I'm sure that we're not going to be able to help ourselves at some point in whatever the next new nonsense is that comes up in ufology or paranormal world. But I think we're going to try our best to ignore all of that. And we would like to have, I think, just a better audience. And I don't mean better than the last incarnation of Paratopia. I just mean, I think we fostered a really good audience with Paratopia. I think we want to keep that going.
I don't think it's necessarily that we won't discuss whatever quote unquote nonsense is going on in ufology, because there's always, let's face it, nonsense in ufology. But I don't think that we're going to fixate and rant upon it for 3 hours. Like, that's not what the show is going to be. We're going to kind of mention it and table it and say, okay, now here's where this should go. Here's where this discussion ought to be going. We're going to try and steer this thing back into some semblance of productive work, I guess is the way to put it.
Well, that's the thing. I kind of feel like, with Project Core, I don't know. I think we've been pretty good in doing proactive stuff and not just saying, hey, complaining about the field of research. We went out and we did research. And now I look around and I go, okay, well, if there's no one really bringing any new thinking to the table, as far as we can tell in any consistent way, well, why don't we be those guys too? Like,
to at least give it a try. I mean.
Sure. So that's sort of what we're doing. And we're not doing a free show for iTunes and then a pay thing and all that. And actually, that was more your idea, but I agree. I just think iTunes, especially, they don't let you set up anything for pay on there. And yet they've got a little thing for podcasts that says free, and you click on it as though you could have an option for a pay episode, but you do with music on there, but you don't.
Right.
So I kind of feel like it's hostile toward podcasting in that weird way. It's like, okay, we're going into 2016 now, you think we could get this going? You know, like there are enough pay shows out there.
Oh, absolutely.
Where you think iTunes would cater to that, but they don't. So it's like, you know what? Screw it. we're gonna do a pay show, you know, which is basically where we left off. But once again, I feel like that's culling a good audience, because you're not going to listen to this and you're not going to want to interact with us and pay for it unless you actually care. At least that's the theory.
Yeah. No, I think the model for that goes back to the reason that Paratopia went to a premium area as well, is that you know, doing things like this is not always conducive to life. You do have to put things off. You have to make the time to do it. Jeremy and I both right now have taken time out of the day to make this happen, to kind of lay down the groundwork of where this show is going to go and how it's going to go. And the bottom line is, I mean, I really, as a kid, I used to laugh when my dad said, time is money. But, you know, when you get older, you realize dear old dad was right. Time is money. And so in the end, it's not only a qualifier, but it's kind of one of those things where if you're going to do any endeavor that's going to take up scads of time, like this will, you got to do something. You know, you got to make something happen with it. And I think that by and large, what we're going to do is do what we did with Paratopia, make the website bigger. You know, at some point, we're going to try and inject other people's content into the site. In other words, other people will have spots on our page, right, where they're going to be able to do music and art and literature and all that kind of stuff, book reviews, whatever you like, so long as it's within the kind of the rough framework of what this show is about, which is, you know, the paranormal, quote unquote, realm of things. So all of that's going to be kind of ported into making the show better, making it more accessible, adding more content, all of that. So that's where your dollars are going and why they're going to this show.
Yeah, we were going to come out strong with all of that, and then it was like, well, let's just see if it catches on first.
Yeah.
But we've already got like pretty much the rough outline of what we want to do for community building purposes.
Yep.
So yeah, you out there in listener land just have to give us the go ahead to do that. And is in terms of the show, the frequency with which we put out shows, I don't know, how serious are we about sort of keeping this anti-structural?
Oh, I'm very serious.
Okay, so talk about that.
I think that one of the biggest problems with paranormal shows that you might listen to or subscribe to is that the reason you hear a lot of repeat guests and the reason you hear a lot of repeat topics, not only on one show, but on multiple shows across the board, you hear the same show with the same guests. And so ultimately for us, it's going to be when there's a topic that we can tackle that we feel is new and different and something worthy to bring you guys and gals, that's when we're going to do a program. And that said, it may not be every single week. It may be 2 weeks and then a week off, and then 3 weeks and then a week off, and then a week and a week off. And it's just going to be that loose. But rest assured, there will be enough meat, so to speak, in each podcast or each broadcast to keep you satiated for a week off if that need happen. So I would prefer to keep this all very anti-structured and structured only in the sense that you're probably going to wind up with 3 hours worth of audio, you know, at some point during these programs, and never less than an hour, hour and a half to 2 hours. So, but that was kind of my idea, is just to keep it very loose. And one of the things that I have to be honest, and one of the things that does turn me off about doing these shows is the obligatory feelings of being obliged to do them. So I think it makes for more productive shows when you know you're not tethered to this thing like a ball and chain.
Yeah. So to that end, when we talk about charging money and premium and all that, we're not doing monthly fees or, you know, any of that sort of. It's just per episode. So it's just $1 and change or whatever it's going to be per episode. And, you know,
yep. You guys remember single buy episodes in Paratopia? That's what we're going to do for across the board. So there won't be any kind of like subscribe for a month or pay us for a year in advance, because we have no idea how many shows we're going to do in advance. We have no idea how many in a year. So, that doesn't quite make sense. So, but we are going to do a mailing list, which will alert you when there's a new program up and ready to go. And as well as keep you apprised of when new shows are coming up, maybe a hint at what some of those topics are going to be. And Jeremy's already worked up a slew. I've done, none. And so anti-structure. And so, there you are. So we've got a slew to talk about right out of the gate, because both of us, I think I'm speaking for you too, Jer. I think we both had a fair amount of weird stuff go on in the interim since the last Paratopia episode, certainly, but even since probably even since I quit Waypoint, we've had some interesting stuff. So we're going to be talking about that, and we're going to be, like Jer said, at some point we're going to have guests, but they're going to be very sporadic, I think, right? And
it's just whoever
we're not going to hunt them down per se. We're not.
Yeah, it's whoever jumps out at us as
topical.
We got to interview that person.
Right. Right.
Let's go after them.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the fact that we're not doing a weekly certainly is to our benefit there, because then we're not constantly under pressure to get
right,
some warm body in a seat.
I think that's one thing people don't realize is it's a lot of work to produce one. It's a lot of work to record one. It's a lot of work to come up with the topics and the guests, but it's even worse to feel the pressure of having to produce. And when you're, I said this about Paranormal Waypoint, when you've got to produce a program every week, invariably, somewhere down the line, like it or not, that program's going to suffer in some kind of quality. Unless your repeat guests continuously have new things to talk about that you find interesting. And unfortunately for me and Jer, we don't.
Right.
I'm sorry to say that, but that's just the way it is. And I know that a lot of people out there, based on your emails that Jeremy and I have been getting, both apart and collectively, you feel pretty much the same way we do about that. And so this is your show. This is the one that is going to kind of cater to that mindset.
I think sort of another anti-structural aspect of it, I suppose, is if it succeeds, great. If it doesn't, great. Fine either way.
Right.
It's kind of like we're doing this on a whim. I think it's going to be hugely successful.
I believe so, too.
I think we're going to have a ton of fun doing it.
Oh, yeah.
But that's going to, totally be contingent on everyone out there, I think.
Right.
So, well, I guess that's true anyway, right? Or is it? I don't know. I guess that's the whole point, right? Is that other shows spin their wheels, and we try not to do that. So
you can try. I mean, it's
in that vein. As soon as we think we are, that's when it's time to take a break.
Well, yeah. And I think that I think that if you liked the Valet shows and the Hansen shows and the Ghost Tour shows and Colin Andrews shows and all that, I think when you start getting into those kind of deeper quote unquote change in the air type shows, that's more along the lines of what we're going after with this. I would like to hear more old British bumbling people talking on the. I mean, we did get that, right? We got that EVP on the air.
That's right.
So,
yeah, there may be. Yeah, well, that's the other thing is too. I didn't even think about that, but we used to talk about, the air changing in the room when you speak deeply of these sorts of mysteries. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, if we're doing an entire show of that, I mean, if this is the icing show, all of the icing with no cake, right, then is that what's going to happen? Eventually, or are we just going to be overtaken by wackiness on the computer system?
Yeah, we're going to walk through the purple door and never be seen again. Life will become a 3-ring circus based upon these 3 hours almost every week. No, I mean, I don't know. It's that's the kind of conversations I would like to have, and I know that we can have those. We have them on the phone practically every time we speak. So, it's going to be that kind of thing, and And I think it's going to be great, to be honest with you. I really do. I'm pretty excited about it. And I'm excited about where it's going to grow into. You know, I don't ever see it becoming a regular podcast. Like I don't think that's where we're at. So we're bucking the trend of iTunes, of regular podcasting. We're giving that all the finger.
That's right.
So that's basically what we're doing. And we would love it if you guys came along for the ride on this. Because I think it's going to be unlike anything else that's going. I mean, that's a pretty broad statement to make, but I think really it is going to be one of those programs.
Yeah, and I think also, you know, we've been talking about nudging our way into, you know, we'd always talked about doing a conference or something like that. I mean, I'm not, you know, who knows what the future holds, but I think we've certainly got our eye on a prize that is greater than even the show, somewhere down the line. Mm-hmm. So we'll just see how this all goes.
I mean, I would like to do. I mean, I think that the trip to Mark Nesbitt's place, where we took a couple listeners, that was, I think, wildly successful. Both in, you know, getting in and making it happen, and the evidence that we actually caught was pretty interesting stuff. I would like to do more of those. In other words, we always talked about doing more of those, but we never had the time or found the venues in which to do something different. You know, I didn't want to just go back to Mark's again and again. But at that point, all things old are new again. So, and that's a possibility that we could stay at Mark's and take a couple listeners with us and do that whole thing again. See if we get the same thing again.
Well, here's a question for you. That I don't think I've ever asked you. When you had that Shroud guy come into your life, do you think that had anything to do with the fact that you were podcasting or being publicly vocal?
By the way, there can be a lot of air on this show while we think.
Yeah, just fill in with a thought bubble.
I don't know, but I will say that, you know, there was, and as I said at the time when that all was going on, that there was kind of an overtone of all of that of, you can't talk about this in the public sense, you know, and then the things that I could talk about in the public sense, of course, threw us into the fire and the flames to a certain degree.
See, here's something that, you know, I know we're supposed to just be doing the intro, but I can't help myself. I want to dive into something really quickly here, because I just did an episode of The Experience last night with this woman. Let's put her name in quotes and call her Claire, for that is what we call her on the show. She has these experiences. It's that typical thing of, she has the one thing that she wants to talk about, but then she jots down any weird thing that happens so that she has a list of things to talk about. And in doing that, it's like you then, if you've never done this before in your life, you look at the paper and you go, oh, crud, am I an experiencer? You know, like I never actually bothered to jot these things down and look at them as a cohesive pattern. And so one of the things that she talked about was a recurring dream that she had from the ages of like 4 to 7 or 9 or somewhere around there. But it was essentially being above Earth in some sort of ship or whatever, with a praying mantis being who was shape-shifting and putting on old-timey hats and all sorts of stuff, as if trying to relate to her as a little kid. Like she got the sense that she was being manipulated. This person was saying, we're best friends, we have to be best friends. And she was trying to relate to her as a little girl and come up with the least scary thing, right? And we've heard this before from experiencers, that they have these experiences where these beings try to present themselves in a way that is not frightening, right?
Right.
So my question for that, as with your shrouded being, is how many of those experiments do they have to do before they realize, oh, if I just present myself as another little girl, she'll be fine? 1,000 years? Like, how many years of that? How many years is enough? A decade, 1,000 years? Like what? Same thing with the shrouded guy. You know, does he just happen to come along at the time when, you know, you're at the peak of your public availability to give you stuff that you're not allowed to talk about on that show? Seriously?
Right. Well, and this goes into the whole juxtaposition of that this is not what it seems to be. This is not a coherent thought. This is like the babbling of mad people.
But here's the thing. It's not only not what it appears to be, but that to me seems like such an obvious point to make, and yet it never gets made. We never made it. Like, people don't make that point. In fact, this woman, she had another experience of when she was, I think she said 17, of having a helicopter shine a light in her window, and she saw the two guys in sunglasses, in their suits in this helicopter shining a light in her window and like waving at her. And, she, up until just recently, 20, 30 years later, whatever it is, she always thought, wow, that was really annoying. It's only recently that she thought, wow, that's actually impossible. That couldn't have happened.
Right.
Like, that should be the first thing you think, is how preposterous, but it's not the first thing you think. Why does it take us 30 years? Why does it take you and I, 5 years or whatever it's been to say, hey, it's kind of weird they came along when you're doing the podcast to say, don't talk about this stuff on a podcast. Like, where does that obvious questioning go? I just, boggles the mind.
I've thought about that and a bunch of other questions of that same ilk. That why would I not question that? Why would I just swallow that whole and accept that as part of my contiguous reality? It makes no sense not to question that. Yet I didn't, and I think that again speaks to the idea that you are in. Like, picture the idea that you're in an altered state, but that altered state doesn't feel like an altered state. It seems just right, in quotes, right. And that assimilates into your memory, into your reality. It seems like that all flows together quite nicely. It's all very uniform. It's all very, it's odd, it's weird, but it's all very smooth. You don't get the jagged edges that catch you on the arm and make you wake up out of this semi-hypnotic comatose state that is your normal waking hours. So is that what that is? Is that,
well? But then, as a society, aren't we all still there? Then, where are the debunkers who have come out and said every time that you hear somebody tell that same type of story about how these beings do this thing that would imply they've never interacted with us before. They're just now trying to figure out our pop culture or our culture, the way we dress.
Right.
And then in the very next breath, that same experiencer will say, well, I don't think they just came here. I think they've been around forever. Or I think we are spawned from them. I think we were an experiment. I think they built Egypt. Whatever it is that implies the ancient relationship. How do you put these two things together? Why has no debunker ever just stood up and been like, well, wait a minute, put these two things together for me. Do they know you intimately? Did they create you in a lab? Or do they know nothing about you and can't even figure out how to get a hat from Sears as opposed to, 1946 Sears?
Right. And not to defend a fundamentalist skeptic by any stretch, but one thing that I have heard a lot of skeptics say is that, well, if these beings, and I've said this myself, we have said this for years, that why should any of this be happening if this, I'm going to say culture, but we don't know if it's a culture of anything, this consciousness, this these beings, however you want to frame that, I don't care. How is it that it has the ability to be at all in its grandiose state, can clearly affect our perceptions? We know that, if nothing else, that it can affect our perceptions to such a massive degree that why would the woman even remember being on a ship standing in front of a giant praying mantis that's putting on hats? That wouldn't even come into play, for God's sake. That is absurd on the face of it to begin with. That to me is, again, one of the clues. It's like, see how absurd I am? You're not getting it. See, I've always gone into the aspect that if this thing is trying to communicate to us in any kind of way, it's probably subliminal. It's probably symbolic in a lot of ways. and we may be the ones that are the stumbling block. In fact, I would hazard to say we probably are the ones that are on the stumbling block here. So the idea that it's manifesting as this entire series of a surreal event for her, it probably isn't that. The question is, if it's not that, then what is it? It's like I said, tried to do research on a fairy tale. That was one of our memes last time. And that's kind of where I feel that question goes is, well, that's just part of the dog and pony show. That really doesn't have a lot of bearing on what's it mean? Where does it go from there? What's the relationship? The bigger questions. That's kind of like the nitpicky detail of it is what she experienced. Now take that and let's try and peel that away and dissect that and see if there's any sensible remarks to be made in that dialogue, if you can call it a dialogue, right? So as far as my guy goes, I haven't seen him since that time that we last talked about it. And I should point out that I was not the only one to see that person. My mom saw him as well, walking along the road. So why that? Why would it show to her? And I think I know why that did that, because when I first told her about seeing this person, I was really over the top emotional about it. I mean, crying in jags about it, and not because it scared me, but just because it was such a floodgate release for me, of finally having that, or finally at least having the illusion of the feeling that there was some kind of cooperative exchange going on instead of just boogity boogity boogity. Now it's like, no, there's something more here, and it's actually kind of neat, right? So was that a nod to my mom that, no, he's not crazy. Here it is. So take what he's saying seriously. Don't worry. Is that what that was? And if so, was that the message? I don't know. I don't know.
Did it do anything for your mom outside of that?
I don't think mom ever disbelieved me, because at one point during, I think my first conversation with her, which was in her kitchen, I was completely falling apart. And I think just because I was telling my mom this, and she would stop and hug me, stop. She'd be like, I don't like seeing you so upset. I'm like, you don't get it. I'm not upset. It's just, it's so unbelievable that I can't even believe it. And yet it is. And I think that she genuinely thought at one point in the conversation that it was bad. I think at another point in the conversation, she thought it might have been some incarnation of me. In another conversation, she thought it might have been an angel, because she's a very religious lady. But I don't, I kind of poo-pooed all of those away, and I said, I don't know what it is, and we shouldn't attach any what is it to that. But what did that do for her? She basically called me when she got home or in the truck on the way home and said, I saw it walking along the road. It's very tall. It's head to toe black, and it was walking along the road. And I said, did you stop? Did you, she says, no. I said, did Dad see it? And I don't know what her answer was, because she never really answered me. She just kept saying to me over and over, she's like, it's all real, isn't it? It's really there. And I was like, it's really there. But again, with that was as fleeting as could be thought of. It ended. I've not had it since. I've had other weird stuff since then that has reverted back to the alien. And so, is that what it is all along, or is it not? What's the real? And I get the feeling that, as I said before, it's all just masks, it's all facades of something else. It's a symptom of something larger. And I think that's, a lot of that is what we're going to be trying to dig into and decide what is the larger, what is the bigger problem that's going on here. That this is the symptomatic result of.
Right. Right. Well, and the good thing is if people don't know, if you're new to the show and you don't know what we just even said, you can go and grab yourself the Paratopia archive. I'm sure by the time you hear this, there will be a button. You can click it and go purchase yourself that archive where all of this stuff is laid out. And all the interviews that you would ever want are all there.
Oh, yeah.
So there you go. But yeah, the other thing is in thinking about this shape-shifting mantis being she said the more she looked at it, the smaller it became. It was like, which I think is interesting. And it just reminds me again of when you first met the Shrouded Man. His face seemed to have, or his voice seemed to have an amorphous quality to it. Shifting into these different sorts of things. And do we really not know what's going on? Or, if her gut feeling is, well, this being is trying to relate to me, so it's changing into something innocuous. It doesn't sound to me like what was going on with you was that necessarily. I mean, I don't even know how to interpret it, except maybe almost like it's not fully come into focus yet, and so it's all over the map. It's not quite refined its presence here or something. But I mean, are these even fair to say? I mean, how much editorializing can we even do about our own experiences? I mean, what's your gut reaction to your own experience? And is it changed at all when you hear similar types of things like that shape-shifting alien in a different context?
Well, I mean, stuff like that you described that she talked about, that's stuff that I was hearing back in the 80s. And up until today, I'm not saying that's an antiquated story by any stretch, but it is something that you hear often in these circles, right? You hear these unbelievable tales to tell. And I think that those become fairly typical because these are the people that kind of accept that at face value. I don't know that there's a way to mentally challenge this stuff when it comes up in your face. I don't know that you can do that. I don't know that most people would have the presence of mind to do that. But I think that if you can even question it in the interim, when it's not there, when you're not experiencing it, if you question it and mull it over in your mind, I think the more that you question it, the more you doubt it, in as much as you're doubting what it's showing you. I think it forces its hand to show you more. Now, that could be also interpreted that your mind is becoming more acclimated to the true nature of the other. As you turn these things over in your mind, you're actually turning pages in a book, and you're getting towards the end of that book. It's a thick book, but you're winding your way through that catacomb to finally find the torch at the end of the hall. And as you get closer, the torch comes into better focus. So is that what's going on? I don't know. As I said, my thing kind of reverted back. I don't think it was horribly long after I started Paranormal Waypoint that happened. If you're a listener, I'm sure that there's a lot of Paranormal Waypoint listeners tuned in. You remember the crystal story? The crystal in the backyard. Put it on my forehead. That night, Lisa and I both see something standing in the floor, staring at us with a very huge head. Pretty much unlike anything that I've seen before, which is unusual to see anything of the alien variety that I haven't seen before, because it was fairly consistent manifestations of that facade for me for years. This was not the typical. I don't know what this was, but it was extraordinarily solid, very present in the room, very non-threatening. In fact, it was hard to tell even what you were looking at for sure, because the room was very dark. But no doubt, there, reflecting light from the window, and very solid, very present, and again, who thinks they see a small, large-headed being standing beside their bed, staring at them, not moving, staring, and doesn't get up and say, "Get out of my house! What are you doing? What's going on? Flip the light on, throw something." What did I do? I went back to sleep. So did my wife. And so what do you make of that? We didn't actually talk about that until a couple of days later. And I mentioned to a friend of mine, I know she wouldn't like to know what I thought I saw in the bedroom the other night. And she said, I already know. And then she went on to describe it. And that just solidified. I think that was something that had rarely happened before, and something that really put me into a tailspin. It's one thing to have these liminal experiences in these strangely altered states, I believe it sometimes. And it's another thing to have somebody say, oh, I saw that, and I saw it at the same time you did. So it's kind of like this. I remember calling Tyler the next morning, and Tyler Kochjohn, and saying, this is what happened. He says, that's fantastic. That's totally independent confirmation. This is wonderful. I'm like, well, I'm glad you think it's wonderful. I'm not going to be able to sleep for the next week. And I didn't. I was going to sleep when the sun came up. I was so freaked out. But again, you're talking to a guy who thinks that the crystal stuff is complete nonsense. And
still.
And it changed my mind about that.
Right.
I don't believe all of the airy-fairy stuff that people attach to them in the New Age circles, but I certainly believe that there's something going on there. And what I take away from that experience is that whatever that was, however it works, if I ever want a dialogue with it, I certainly can have one. And all I need do is venture into the backyard, pick it up from the statue of Buddha's feet in the back garden, and put it to my forehead.
So really the only difference between what you just said and the airy-fairy New Age thing is that you're not psyched about it.
Right. Right. Well, I think in New Age circles, I put it to you this way. I read a book one time that said you could put a charged quartz crystal into a dirty glass of water and then drink the water because it would be magically cleaned by the crystal. You won't catch me drinking toilet water after putting a crystal in it. That's not happening for me.
That's good to know.
I'm not into using it as a pendulum. I'm not, this thing is, and I should mention, Joe Gooch, asked me to send it to him. And I told him I would love to, but I don't know how to handle it to send it to him. Because I don't want that again, not until, I'm ready for it, But I did meet a man. At the time, I had a small antique store down the street, and a man had come in, and he sold rock specimens, for lack of a better way to put it. And I didn't know much about him, but we got to talking, and it turns out that he's extraordinarily well known in the Wiccan community, steeped in magical practices. You would never know it to look at him. He looks like Farmer John, but is a wellspring of knowledge. And I related what I had done to him. And of course, when I got to the part about the crystal being in the backyard or outside in the elements for close to 4.5, 5 years, and then putting it to my forehead, he went, oh. And I said, not good, right? He said, no, you never want to do that unless you're ready for it. If you're ready for it, great. But, that crystal sounds like it was overcharged. I was like, well, yeah. And I told him what happened, and he said, okay, well, here's what I'm going to tell you. I've seen those beings before. In much the same fashion that you did. And if you want a dialogue with that, you can have it. And I said, really, like, how do you do that? So, well, you do what you did, and you say hello, welcome, and maybe you throw your legs gently over the bed and sit on the edge of the bed, and you just talk. And he said, it will answer you, and it will tell you things. And I said, well, like what? And he said, well, I'm not going to poison your mind with anything. I want you to have that experience completely clean of whatever would happen. So, but I said, did you talk to him? He said, I have had limited dialogue, yes. And it's a pretty incredible experience, but you have to be ready for it. You have to be expecting it. He said to do that out of the blue and then go to bed expecting nothing he said, and I don't say this, he said it was foolish, but he says, I don't mean that in a derogatory form to you. It just, you didn't know what you were doing. You didn't know what you were fooling with. Now you know. Now, if you want that experience, you know how to have it. And I do. The question is, what is that experience? How to get in the house? These were questions that people ask me when I talk about the sequel. How to get in the house?
Well, I don't know. This is going to go right back to the old, why don't you just set up a camera and do it? And then you got your proof.
Right.
So what's the answer to that?
Well, I think the answer to that is that it's been tried before by a lot of people. Set up a camera, nothing will happen. Camera will go dead, something will happen. You'll get up and turn the camera off, something will happen. I recently bought a drop cam for my dogs. I think anybody who followed the program knew about my dog, Indy. Indy got put to sleep in November, this past November. She just plain wore out. At 19 years and 8 months old, we had to let her go. She was incredibly sick and incredibly old. And so we've adopted 2-year-old male beagles. So I'm not sleeping a lot, but they're great. But I did buy a drop cam, which basically hangs from the ceiling. And it is a live cam that I can go on my desktop and view the camera. I can go on my phone, my iPad, anything you want. The medium is irrelevant. You can view what's going on at your house 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as long as the camera's on. It's a private feed. And I've actually thought about buying another one and patching that in, turning it on and letting it go public. Again, this is something that if I can make enough money with this program, because the drop cam is $200, I'll take $200 out of the show and I'll buy one and I'll hook it up here. And that way, if people want to watch, they can watch as we try to do things around here. But I mean, my opinion is, yeah, I could try, but you know what? I'm not ready for that. I'm just not. I can't explain how one experience going all the way back to Lisa and I in the truck, many, many years ago, to the guy in the black shroud, to the thing manifested by some operation of this quartz piece. I mean, all of those are inherently different experiences, but the quartz thing, that was viscerally real. I was not in an altered state. I didn't feel altered at all, but yet I didn't feel threatened. I didn't feel the compulsion to get up and poke it. I didn't feel the compulsion to say anything. I didn't feel a compulsion to wake Lisa up and say, do you see this? What is this? It was completely off guard. And and for that, maybe for that reason alone, that it was completely off guard, that there was no precursor to it. It was blink, I'm awake. I'm really awake. I mean, I'm from, dead sleep to bam, I'm awake. Lucid as all get out. And there it is. And it's standing there, literally feet from me. I can't explain that other than at the time, not scared at all. But once I realized what it was, and then at least I had seen it independently, it was all just, it was like, this is like, I'm not ready for this again. I can't do this. I'm not ready for this.
The fact that you guys waited a day to talk about it, did the timing of you finally talking about it have any meaning or value?
Well, I had woke up the next, because I mean the kind of the pretext to not getting up and not poking it and not trying to do something to turn on a light to see what is that I'm seeing. Because I did get up on my elbow and I leaned towards it. It's like I'm leaning towards putting my head in the lion's mouth, but I'm leaning towards it. And as I leaned towards it, it kind of leaned away from me. And in my head, I go, did that just move? What is going on? Did that just move? Because the first thing that I'm thinking is that this is a fan on the desk with a shirt covered on it. That's what I'm seeing. That's what this is, but it's awful tall to be that. So maybe the fan is on top of something else. Either way, I think this is the fan. No, there's no fan. The fan is downstairs on top of a bookcase in the living room. I don't know why I thought this at the moment, but when I got up the next morning, it was instantly in my head. I looked over on my desk or towards my desk where I'm sitting right now, and there was nothing there. And I said, okay, so what was that? And I pondered it till about noon or 1 o'clock. And then I just didn't really think about it much the rest of the day. A couple times it popped into my head, and I thought, that was really weird. What was that? And then Jason had come over for dinner. We were talking beforehand, and he said something along the lines of, have you seen anything odd in the house? Yada, yada, yada. And I said, no, but if Lisa knew what I saw in the bedroom on a Sunday or Monday night, she wouldn't be too happy, or something along those lines. And she said, oh, I already know. You know, short, round head, spindly, standing near the bed.
Did she tell you why she never said anything?
She said that literally the night that she saw it, and this is very interesting bit of this that speaks to something of the dynamic of what we want to talk about on this show. Because my experiences was, I woke up, I saw it, I leaned towards it, I saw it very well. The longer that I affixed my eyes to the darkness, the more I could make out of the features. And I thought I saw eyes. I thought I saw mouth. I thought I saw kind of like indentations for cheekbones and temples and this kind of thing. All the humanistic features that shouldn't be on a quote unquote alien, right? And so I see this. I go back to sleep. I'm like, I don't know. And I go back to sleep. Excuse me. I go back to sleep. Lisa tells me that she wakes up at my flopping back down onto the pillow. She wakes up. She sees it. She actually sees more of it than I do. She sees a shoulder, edge of an arm, part of the chest. It's very, it's a lot more evident to her. And she said it doesn't move. It's staring at me. And she said she closed her eyes because she wasn't sure what she was seeing. She closed her eyes very tight and opened them up again, and it wasn't there. Then she closed her eyes again, scrunched them real tight, opened her eyes, and it was there again. And then it stayed, no matter what she did. She rolled away from it over on her side and said to herself, this is what she tells me she said, I can't possibly tell Jeff about this. He'll freak completely out. So she didn't say anything until I said something, and then she out with it. I hadn't said a word to anyone about it. And I think that that's what made it all the more viscerally real in hindsight.
Right.
Lisa's experience in the truck the night of our large event, which I've talked about a lot, that was two separate experiences for the most part. It only had a slight bit of overlap to it, which made it very real, which made our experiences in tandem with each other, but along different paths. I was in one place, she was in another. But this was a shared experience. This was literally not talked about until one broke the ice, and then the other said an independent confirmation. She described it precisely as I saw it. She said, enormous head, very round, not triangular, not smooth and smooth triangular, but very round, like Gazoo, from the Flintstones, like that kind of round, bulbous, which I don't absolutely know that I've seen something like that so bulbous before. I think probably the nearest thing would be the hypnopompic hallucination that became somewhat manifested real when I saw the fractals in my visions and looked out in the hallway and saw the alien climbing out of the fractal. Was that hypnagogic or hypnopompic? I don't know. It certainly made a sound when its arm hit the wall. I don't know, but that seemed to be quite bulbous as well. But I don't think to this degree. This is an enormous head. I mean, bigger than a basketball, I would say, slightly bigger than a basketball. That's pretty large for a cranium. But present, I mean, reflected light to the degree that you could see abnormalities in the skin, like you would see abnormalities in our skin. It's bumps and, protuberances of some sort, but I couldn't tell what they were, but a wetness to it, like an oiliness to it. You could see all that in the reflected light coming through the window. I don't know. I don't know what that was. Viscerally real.
Did Mothman have arms? Here's an sequitur for you.
I don't know.
I only ask because, does everything have arms and legs? Is this evolutionarily advantageous all across the multiverse?
That I don't know. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I saw the head, the neck, part of the shoulders. Past that, I couldn't see anything. That was below the window frame direction of the light. The light was coming streaming in from a flood lamp outside. So the light was coming in and spilling onto the floor. This thing just happened to be standing with its back to that.
Did you have any sense that it was, well, I guess that's all the sense you have, but that it was directional? Like when you say, not sure where it came from, I mean, do you think that it was coming through you and spilling out into the room as we sort of talk about, or do you think that there might be sort of a rip in the fabric, so to speak, and it would be directional? If you were to look to the right or left, would you not have seen it?
Let me answer that by relating what I was told. And I don't put a lot of stock in psychics per se. But I was kind of desperate for some kind of answer that this wasn't going to keep happening over and over and over the course of nights or years or months or what have you. And I talked to Lane Crosby, who we had on Paratopia, and she recommended me talking to a lady named Patty. And I called Patty and I told her what happened. I told her what I did. She had much the same reaction that the man at the antique shop did. And she said, it sounds to me like the crystal was highly overcharged. So what you might, and she didn't necessarily answer that, well, why, how did it get in the house? She just said, basically, these things are passing along all the time. In her view, these things are passing along all the time. She said, you don't know what you may look like to them when you interact with this quartz that is highly overcharged, that is literally vibrating in your hand, that sort of thing. And I don't mean like it would vibrate off the table. I mean, you hold it and you feel something. And, I would do a double blind to prove that. I would do a double blind with somebody and blindfold them and have them hold two identically shaped crystals and tell me which one is making their hand feel funny. I guarantee you mine would win. So that's maybe an experiment to have at some point. But she said, for all we know, we're glowing like a neon sign to them. And she said, this thing may have stopped along just passing through and may have stopped because it saw you glowing. It saw Lisa glowing to a lesser degree and thought, what's going on with these people? Why are they glowing like that? Is that the reason it was just staring? Was it seeing something on us that we couldn't see? Again, I don't know how much stock I put in any of that, but it made me feel better at the time because she said, if you did that on, say, Sunday or Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon, these things, they don't have a lot of holding power. So you can rest assured tonight, when you go to sleep, you won't see anything weird unless you mess with that again, in which case you will. But I didn't. I went. I slept peacefully that night. It made me feel better.
Well, I actually think that's more interesting proposition. Yeah, because you're the one activating it, right? So if you activate this crystal, then are you somehow the ghost or the interdimensional alien to this other realm? And then if a being is walking by, does it just... Are you like in its forest? Is
it having a sighting?
Are you Bigfoot?
Right. Yeah, like what she said that's how it may appear. That what if you walked by and someone was glowing? Would you not stop and look? I said, yeah, I would. I said, but I wouldn't expect to have that person see me. And this thing clearly knew I could see it, but I think it also clearly knew that I couldn't figure out exactly what it was.
But it seems to be okay with that. See, that's the thing. It's like, where's the interaction in the literature? And it may be there, because I certainly haven't read everything, But where this situation happens and the being on the other side of the veil is scared of you and freaks out and runs away, right, or thinks that you're terrorizing it.
Right. Yeah. I don't know.
Why are they always understanding? They're always there and they're just ready to talk. Like this guy said, you could talk to him. Sure, you could just talk to him.
Yeah.
It's also interesting, when you think about that, you've got this way to communicate with these beings, and this guy from the antique store is saying, well, you could just talk to them, whenever you want. So they're just sitting around but they're not trying to make communication with you, these bulbous-headed beings. They're not knocking on your door. They're not putting crystals up to their heads to come talk to Jeff Ritzmann, but
right.
But if you want to talk to them, they'll just be there whenever you make the call. I mean, that to me smacks more of DMT tykes or something like that without the excitement, without
the dope, right? Yeah. I mean, it's one could easily argue
without the giddiness. I mean, the DMT type things like there. Oh, we got to show you this. We got to show you this, right?
Right.
And with the so-called alien, it's like, hey, yeah, what do you there's almost more of the oracle feel to it.
Right. And again, when you want to talk about the fear of something like that, like the fear of what, okay, if it said, I mean, this goes back to Toilet Elf, right? So we were talking about Toilet Elf the other night and how Toilet Elf was beckoning this person to come, go in the toilet with me. Come on, the toilet masquerading as the purple door. Go through that door and, not only yet there be monsters in there, but there also be not coming back either, right? It also goes back to Colin talking about, his friend who had passed on, who was drugged into the center of a crop circle. What would have happened to him had he reached the center? Would he have disappeared? Would he have never come back? Would that have been, the story? Would Colin now be locked up for, murder or something crazy like that? I mean, if you open a dialogue with this thing and it persuades you to take my hand, come with me, I'll show you things you've never seen. And, all really Willy Wonka-ish until you turn around, you go, hey, this won't open. Hey, can I get back to where I need to go back? I'm tired of this where the wild things are. I want out of here. And it goes, oh, well, sorry, it's one way. I'm not up for that. And this is why I feel that there is an element here that is inherently dangerous because we simply don't know enough. Can you be persuaded, to take hold of the wizard's robe and not really be cognizant of what you're doing? Could you go, oh yeah, sure, I'll do that. But if you're in this altered state, or it tends to placate you with other things, take your mind out, could that be what is going on? Is this what is it, David Paulides? This is what he talks about with people disappearing. And I mean, really, can we be so arrogant to think that we got everything nailed down to serial killers and, and human trafficking?
But this is, where I was trying to go with asking about, was there meaning in the revelation of this, the timing of it, which is, we talk about the sort of puppet master aspect of it. I see a UFO with my mom and sister. We go to the grandparents' house. We think they're going to make fun of us. They have mysteries, time, life of the unexplained sitting on the coffee table. Oh, your uncle saw a UFO, and then all of a sudden all of it feels like a coordinated movement, not just that you happen to see this ship in the sky, but the whole thing seems like you're on a string dancing to someone's beat. And so, I don't know that we'll ever get to the bottom of this, but there does seem to be that element to it. And so because there's that element to it, is it even possible that that Pat Delgado, Colin's friend, could have gotten sucked into the center of the circle? Do you have the choice? Or is that part of the puppet master thing? And there's no real choice. Of course you're going to pull your friend out. Of course it's going to relent and let go of Pat Delgado. Right. And there's some other meaning behind that or reason for it. I don't know. I don't know that we can ever get to the bottom of this, but it sounds like at least with you and Lisa, there wasn't that meaning. It was simply that she didn't want to freak you out and tell you about it. And
yeah, that's absolutely what she told me. I mean,
And it was going to come up eventually. I mean, you were having Jason over, so he's going to ask you.
Sure.
Anything weird going on?
Right.
I mean, there's nothing like synchronistic to me about any of that.
Right. I mean,
but again, same thing with Toilet Elf. Like, I guess is like the point of, you know, you're a little kid and you're seeing this elf and you're, hey, where are you from? And he points to the toilet and waves you on, like, hey, come with me. Right. And it's scary to think about the ramifications of that door shutting behind you, but is there even that option? Because at the end of that situation, I mean, he wakes up the next day on the floor in the hallway.
Right.
So clearly, whatever happened could have stolen him away if it wanted to.
Uh-huh.
Instead, it let him go, and he woke up on the floor of the bathroom, and now he's got this story that informs how he thinks about life, the universe, and everything for the rest of his life.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it begs the question: is what happens if you just let go and go? I mean, can you go?
Can you? That's the question. You know? Maybe you can't because
is it the very action of them telling you, "Hey, come with me"? Is it just the reaction of what is going to be his reaction to that? Is he going to come or is he not? Maybe that's what they're after.
Yeah, or is that whole, like, how destined is everything is my question, you know? Like, is even all of that a ruse? It's like, this is the way this is all supposed to go. I mean, I don't know. I don't have an answer to this, but obviously, but it just strikes me as odd that something that could knock you out and then you wake up on your floor later couldn't just take you if it really wanted you there.
Right.
And then, you know, add on top of this, let's circle back to, you know, sort of the conversation started about the weird things that we don't think about that are so obvious when you think about them.
Right.
So if you don't think for the next 20 years that it's really weird that a helicopter shined a light in your room and you saw a couple of guys waving at you and giving you the thumbs up in your window, and it doesn't dawn on you for the next 20 years that could not possibly have happened that way, then there's something going on there to where you got to ask, you know, could you? I know it presents itself like a question, come with me, do you want to? It presents itself as a choice, but is that really a choice? How in control of our own thought processes, faculties, and all of that are we?
Yeah. Well, what is it that Whitley says that the visitors are more in charge of our everyday reality than we would dare to believe? I mean, if that's true, that says a lot. But I think, you know, when you say that whoever it was had woken up on the floor after the elf experience in the bathroom, I mean, my easy answer to that is, what if it needs, you know, what if it's like the vampire that needs the permission to come in the house? What if it needs your, you know, your approval or your acquiescence to go down the toilet bowl? In other words, it can't take you. You have to want to go. I mean, isn't this the reason that fairies stole children in the old days, you know, because children were easily placated with a shiny object. Come with me, little boy. I've got more of those.
Yeah, okay. But once again, like, what I know he's a kid and all at that point, but even as a kid, who wants to go down the toilet bowl? Like, that's not, you could have at least dressed that up a little.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know. You know, who wants to go up the chimney with Saint Nick? The chimney's filthy. I ain't going up there. But it's Saint Nick. And who knows? Maybe the elf thought, hey, look at me. I'm an elf. You know, aren't I jolly?
Well, you know, that's actually
follow me.
An interesting point in another way, too, which is like, you know, all of the sort of initiation or oracle type stuff where you come out enlightened or in conversation with the gods on the other side is to go through a cave or to go through some dank, dark, disgusting, scary place. You know,
even the near-death experience is going through a tunnel, which they say can be horrifying, but you easily get through it. You know, I mean,
so how different is it from a toilet or Saint Nick up going down a chimney?
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never thought about the chimney being disgusting, but I guess it is, huh?
Yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, all of this stuff. It's. I think you can make all the parallels. I mean, of course, you know, a lot of people will contest the parallels that you can make to folklore and all of that. But I mean, it's kind of undeniable when you think about if we consider this to be modern day folklore of some kind. It's impossible not to draw these kind of parallels in the old, the old stories. And here's one for you that I'll throw out there because I know we're running short on time here. The boys, as I call them, my dogs, they're 2-year-olds, and their names are Barkley and Junebug, by the way. And Barkley is a little one who is very nervous. He was on Prozac with his previous owner for a little bit. That's right, a dog on Prozac. And so he's very scared, like when it thunderstorms. He's very scared of loud noises. But otherwise is a pretty chilled out, but always willing to play type of dog. Now, Junebug is like the perfect dog. He'll chew up a pair of sunglasses every now and then, but by and large, as long as you keep stuff up, he's a good dog. He's very large. He's portly. I'll say that to be nice.
He can hear you.
Yeah. But he is like the spitting image of Indy if she weighed 20 more pounds. He looks just like her. And he's so sweet. I mean, he's just lovey-dovey all the time, but will play, and they wrestle around together. The problem comes in when it's time to go to bed. Junebug will tap out and not wake up till noon the next day. He's a very good sleeper. Barkley will wake up at 3, at 4, at 5, whine, to the point where you let him out because you think he has to go, but he doesn't have to go. So the other night, I fall asleep on the couch, as often happens. Lisa, of course, leaves me to die. She comes upstairs, gets in our nice cushy bed, and has it all to herself. I, on the other hand, am laying downstairs with 2 dogs. And so at a certain point, Barkley goes up, and we had started letting Barkley sleep with us because it was translating into him sleeping longer, him not getting up, but sleeping till 9, which is great. And Junebug was content to sleep we bought him actually a very short sofa that is all their own. That's where they sit. And so, they don't get on people furniture. They stay on their furniture, which is great. They're very well behaved in that respect. So at a certain point, Barkley comes downstairs. He wakes Junebug up. They're walking around. They're whining. They got to go out. So I come up to bed. They settle back down. Eventually they're up again. Lisa says, I'll take them out. I said, okay. I wasn't in any mood to argue. I was exhausted. So I'm in bed. She gets up, goes downstairs, takes the boys out. She comes back in about 2 minutes later. This was night before last, I think. She called me from the bottom of the steps. She goes, Jeff, come down here a minute. So I get up. I go down. I'm thinking one of the dogs has gotten out. That's the first thing that comes to mind. She says, there's something weird in the backyard. I need you to come take a look. Let me just tell the audience something. In case you don't know me, that's not the thing that you want to say to me to get me to go outside with you at 3:30 in the morning. So I said, well, what is it? She goes, I don't know. It's a light. I said, okay. So here's how my backyard is laid out. When you go out my back door, there's my studio building. It's a big barn-like building. Off to the right is a very large gazebo beside a pond, beside a garden, and some trees. And then there's my backyard, which is out from all of that. Against the one side of my property, on the left side of my house, is a small stint of woods, like pine trees, but they're huge. And I'm the only one with trees this big in the neighborhood. There's tons of them. They all go along the side of my property because I live on a corner. Well, right along the fence, I go out. Lisa says, look down there and stand where I'm standing. So I stand where she's standing, and I look straight down, and here looks like a small red star on the ground. And I said, well, what is it? And she says, I don't know. But again, As with some UFO sightings that I've had, take a step to the left or a step to the right, and it disappears. Stand right where she's standing, you can see it perfectly clear. It's much more intense and much more bright than, say, a cigarette that you can see for quite a distance, right? When somebody puffs on a cigarette, you can see it in the dark really well. This was much more intense than that. Spiky light like a star. We slowly make our way over to this light. We can see it all the while. I have the forethought. Bring your phone, I said. Bring your phone. So I take my phone out. I boot up the camera. I look at it. I'm looking at it. I want to take a picture of it. It does not show up on the camera. I'm looking right at it with my cell phone camera. It's not there. I'm looking at it with my eye. It's there. It will not show up either on the video setting or the photographic setting. Neither one. I thought, okay, I'm freaked out sufficiently. So we turn the flashlight on. It's gone. It's not there. There is nothing there. There's not a piece of tinfoil. There's not a piece of glass. There's not a blade of grass or a plant with dew on it. There's nothing. It's nothing. There's dirt. Turn the flashlight off. It's back again. It's right there. I dig my hand through it. It's still there. It doesn't move. I mean,
this has happened to you before.
This has happened to me before.
Different color, though, I think.
White, yes. And white was when I was with a friend of mine when I used to hunt, which was many years ago. We saw something like this right between us on the ground that looked like a star. White, spiky light, very intense. We kicked it with our boots. We scuffed over top of it. You couldn't move it. And as daylight came, it faded away. Neither one of us could figure out what in the hell that was, but we never saw it again. This was very much like that. And I don't know what to make of it. All I can say is that as I stood there and as I turned the flashlight on and off and tried to take a picture, I mean, I put my camera phone right down on it and it wasn't there. It was not showing up. But yet to look at it with your eye, it's as bright. You can't figure out why is this not showing up, but it didn't. And I got an inherently creepy feeling swept over me, and I just stood up. I said, "Come on, boys, it's time to go in," and we all went in. I don't know what it was. Haven't seen it since. Haven't bothered to get up at 3 a.m. to look either. So, excuse me, I don't know what it was. What is that? What is that? That's not even an experience. Like, what is that? I saw a bright light, You sound like Diane Labinek with the carp case. It's like, I saw a light. What? You saw a light on the ground? Yeah. Okay. What?
Yeah.
What?
And it's small. It's not even, it's just, it's just purely notice me. Is that all that is?
I don't know. I do find it curious that both instances in my life where I've seen something like that were near or in woods. And I'm going to hesitate to bring up the footprints, Jeremy, that I took pictures of in my front lawn.
The tree snuffler.
That's correct.
Ah, excellent.
Was this fairy poo? I don't know. No, I don't know. Why near woods? Both times, near the woods. What do the woods have to do with it? The continuity here between those two stories is woods.
Well, and the shrouded dude told you, go out into nature. It's easier for us to contact you there.
Yes. He smelled of pine trees and water and dirt and, seawater. All this stuff within the more naturey areas of the lawn, not in the manicured, edged, bend to my will nature type of part of the lawn. This is in the more wildy area. I don't know. I don't know what to say about that other than it was oddly familiar, but I think you could have stood there and looked at it until the sun came up and it gradually would have faded away. But There was nothing there. There was dirt. That was what there was there. I kicked it with my foot. I moved it with my hands. There was nothing there. And yet it continued to glow. And no reaction from it either. I should note that. I could block it out with my hand as I moved the dirt and I moved the leaves and whatnot. I could block it out, but I couldn't. I dug and you couldn't get to it. I mean, in the case of the white one, we dug. I mean, we dug with our boots. We dug with our hands.
And did you just stay with the ground that
Yes, it stayed with the. Yes, yeah. In other words, you can't really judge distance with it. It's not, you could say, oh, it's right there on the grass. It might be on the grass, but when you peel the grass away and it's still there, that means it's deeper than the grass. Yet it is a fixed point in 3D space. It's not like it follows your eye or it moves in any way.
Well, that makes it sound like it's shining up from underneath the earth. Is that what you're saying it looks like?
I mean, if that's the case, then you should be able to bury it, to block it to something. And no matter what you do, it has no effect on this. In other words, you can block it out with your hand, but as far as moving something on the ground in front of it, like you're looking at it right, I'm going to say behind it, but to move the grass, to move the leaves, to rustle the grass or whatever, no, it has no effect. It doesn't blink. It doesn't warble. It doesn't move. It doesn't anything. It's like you're not even doing anything. So what is that? I don't even know what kind of experience that's called. Nothing interacted with me. I got a creepy feeling when I noticed that, hey, this is the same thing as before. I don't know. What is that? And here's the interesting bit. What Lisa told me when we came in was when she let the dogs out, they immediately ventured to that area. They go down to the corner. They make their rounds around the pond, around the gazebo, up in front of my shed, down along the side. They wouldn't go into that area. She said literally Junie walked halfway across the lawn and kind of stood and stared, and they both kind of stood and stared at the light. That's what got Lisa's attention on it. And then they kind of both sheepishly backed away and went the other direction and would not venture in that half of the lawn. This is highly unusual for beagles. They want to investigate everything. They wanted no parts of going in that side of the lawn. What is that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, at the very least, it's a lesson in physics.
Yeah. So I don't know what to make of that. I don't know what to say about it.
How long ago was that?
Night before last.
Oh, okay. Huh.
So...
And when the last one happened, was that did that kick off a series of events, or was it just sort of a one-off thing that happened?
No, it was a complete one-off. Although there was a lot of weird stuff happening with my friend Ken, who I went hunting with. I think with friends, it is kind of interesting that both relatively close friends, aside from you, both close friends that I've had, one being Byron and the other being Ken, when I've had odd experiences with them, that usually marks with the end of the friendship or the end of the association within, a couple of months or less. I think after the UFO sighting that I had with Byron, it was pretty much a short trip from there to we don't really talk anymore. We don't really see each other anymore. And Ken, the same thing. We went hunting for a long time together. Never got anything, but we went hunting a lot and spent a lot of time talking and whatnot in the woods. But not long after that, we kind of stopped hanging out. We just had no particular reason. Nothing really set it off. We just stopped hanging out. And, our sighting at the bus stop had no effect at all.
Were you worried about it then?
It never occurred to me then. It never really occurred to me. I guess it occurred to me when I started thinking about the anti-structure experiment that I kind of half-heartedly did, which I guess is the way to do an anti-structured experiment is half-heartedly. Because I thought, well, what am I bringing to the house? What's going to be the effect on my son, my wife? What's that going to do? and that's when that occurred to me. Like, well, when I've had these unusual experiences with a lot of people, namely the two that stick into my head are the two I mentioned, it's usually kind of heralded the end of them hanging out with me or vice versa. So this doesn't seem to have that effect with you or with my wife or, with my mom or anything like that. So, and that said, I think, and I'll have to ask Lisa and we'll talk about it next time. I want to say that this was the same night with the red light on the ground. I want to say night before last was also the night where Lisa went out at a decent hour, about 8, 9 o'clock. It was dark. That she went out with the dogs, and when you let them out, they immediately, as I said, run out into the lawn. You don't see them for very long; they twaddle away. Well, she let them out. They ran around my studio building, and as she went to shut the big sliding glass door, she looked in the door, and behind her, reflected in the glass, was Indy, and Lisa was quite shaken with that because she turned around immediately, and of course Junebug and Barkley were way down the lawn, and yet Indy was in the. And she said, "I said, did you lay eyes right on it?" She goes, "Looked right at her," and then I turned around to look to see where the dogs were, saw they weren't behind me, looked back at the glass, and it was gone. And that marks the 4th or 5th sighting of her that we've had between her and I together combined. And Cody one, so that would make probably 6. So, so that's very strange, although people talk about that all the time. These are not like the light that appears on the ceiling in the house, which I recently started seeing again. That's peripheral. It's very fleeting and peripheral. This is, you're looking at it like you're really looking at it. And it's not shy, I mean, Lisa watched Indy probably a week or 2 after she was put to sleep, watched her walk from the corner of the couch and walk right into the kitchen from the corner of the living room. She sat there and watched her walk. And when she leaped up to go in the kitchen, of course, there was nothing there. But she said, I laid my eyes right on her. I watched her foot after foot walk into the kitchen. She said, I couldn't open my mouth. I was laying on the couch. I saw nothing. But she said, I saw her paw over paw walk to the kitchen. As clear and as real as anything in the room. I don't know. I mean, what is that? Is that can we go the psychological route and say, familiar stimuli, it was typical to see her walk that path into the kitchen. Is that just some kind of memory playing continuance type thing? I don't know. I didn't see it. What I did see was coming into the house one night and walking in and being alone in the house, nobody home. Didn't have the boys yet. And when I walked into the living room, there was I don't know, like a bunch of transparent cotton candy looking stuff in the shape of kind of like a dog, but disconnected legs that kind of looked like transparent smoke or cloud of some sort, but it was moving. And it literally went from the couch to me and then over into the corner where Indy used to lay. And it all happened within 5 seconds. And I was like, okay, what the hell was that? And, later on, I sat down to think about it. I was like, I saw that very clearly. I watched it come up to me. I backed away a second. It ran to the corner. I said, that was probably the dog, So everybody else sees her with fur. I see her as
cotton candy,
transparent cotton candy, which is
delicious.
Good too.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So come, let me smell you. So yeah, the old girl is still around, but she's fleeting. But I mean, it's been stuff like that. It's been very, very easy to take stuff. There hasn't been anything really horrifying the meteor shower. I stood out in the driveway at 3:00 in the morning with a camera pointed at the sky. And I thought, well, if something weird's going to happen, this is the time. Nothing. I got a really great shot of the meteor, but nothing weird, nothing scary. Heard a funny sound, but that was it. And that could have been anything. Nothing. So, I don't know. It's always very unexpected. I went through a period where I did a lot of anti-structural things. I lived a certain way. I didn't sleep a lot. I ate what I want when I want. Didn't eat dinner at a specific time. I was all over the place and got very modest stuff. And then when I fall back into some semblance of order, which is odd for me anyway, at the least moment of expectation, weird something happens that you can actually lay your eyes on.
Well, isn't that doesn't that follow the pattern of manifesting?
Structure is anti-structure to me, I guess.
Well, no, but manifesting your intention, a la The Secret, which is, it seems like the key ingredient missing there whenever we talk about it, or whenever I hear people talking about it, is the letting go. So it's like you want something, you put all of your focus on it, but then it's important to let it go. And so the anti-structural experiment for you was the putting all of your whatever into it. Obviously you have an expectation of something, or at least that you're doing an experiment to provoke something, but maybe that thing can't be provoked until you relax and let it go and release it into the universe, as it were.
And I was completely piqued. I was that entire time. I made myself acutely aware of every strange sound in the house and every odd rod or cone firing in my eye, was like, what was that? So I agree. I agree. I guess the next time I do something like that, it should be with reckless abandon and no expectation at all.
Well, yeah. How do you, does an anti-structural experiment have structure built into it? Because you're doing something.
Because you're doing it. You're intentionally doing it. Yeah. So it's hard to be anti-structural until you find yourself in the life path that leads you to that way.
But see, that's interesting, because that is sort of a bizarro backwards reflection of the spiritual thing of letting go for the sake of letting go.
Yeah.
People want to they seek something and then they want what they seek. And so you say, well, just let go. And then there's still a them doing the letting go. So they're not really letting go.
Right.
There's still them in the way, doing something. And isn't it the same thing here with anti-structure? You're not really letting go. You're not being anti-structural.
I think possible. Yeah, I think it's possible for sure.
But then, and also this gets to, these are different ways of using the same mechanism, or the same language, at least. And so when we talk about these things that are so-called alien, following a template of the mythical or the initiatory or that sort of thing, is it because, are we limited? Isn't that the nature of a fractal anything, is that you have a limited set of things at your disposal that can be combined in infinite ways, or have a number of meanings to them. And so maybe we only have so many useful languages, and perhaps English isn't one of them, to speak with this other thing. And perhaps it uses a mythical language and an initiatory language. Perhaps you can only get to it through things that you've heard in terms of spirituality, letting go, or getting what you want in life, The Secret, these sorts of things. Maybe these they open a multitude of doors, let's say, if you just put a little stank on them, put a little twist to them.
That also speaks to the psychedelic experience too. You literally, you eat the mushroom, you're surrendering to that mushroom. You can't fight that. You can, but you're going to lose. And any, I would assume DMT is a lot the same way. When you do that, you're basically you're letting go of the reins in a big way, and what happens. And I should point out that I just recently read a piece on Erowid. I believe it's erowid.com or .org. One of the people had written, and it's sprinkled across several people, but these people talk about DMT experiences, and they say that when the DMT is brought into the room, it's not even smoked yet. It's not being used. It's simply in the room. They describe a feeling coming over them and the air of the room that sounds very much akin to our change in the air during deep conversations about this stuff. The way they describe it sounds almost identical. That just being in the presence of this compound elicits some kind of strange feeling. Is that anticipatory of what they're going to experience when they smoke it? I don't know. But it is interesting that the very presence of this compound elicits some kind of feeling that's akin to what we talked about. And to me, I can't think of anything that you could surrender more to than something like that. You take it, that's the end. It's happening. That's a surrender of some kind as well.
Yeah. It's all the same. The shaman who gets pulled apart.
Yeah.
The alien at your door.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's all using the same mechanisms. And so, it's always tempting to say, well, then isn't this all one phenomenon? And maybe it is. Maybe it's one thing acting out as different things. Or maybe we're just so, like I said, limited in the ways that we can usefully interact with these seemingly others. That after a while it starts to look suspiciously like the same thing, but maybe it isn't. I don't know.
I mean, you could argue it's as different as we are. I mean, as people, it's certainly manifests that way, or it seems to.
I mean,
anyway.
you're not getting the same thing emotionally or in thought or anything else out of seeing Indy walk across the room as you are from a bobbleheaded thing in your room, as you are from something saying "open your eye."
Right.
So, I mean, these are...
Yeah.
Are these different experiences or just seemingly different experiences? I would say that they're different, right?
Yeah, I mean, on the face of it, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I mean, again, it's one of those... I mean, and this could be purely your own mind turning it over and trying to make sense of something that doesn't really make sense. Is the overarching... point to be made here is that, life is not what you think it is. This is not what you think. This doesn't work the way you think it works. And, is it thumbing its nose at your notion of reality and all that sort of thing? And if so, why does it only do it to certain people?
Well, yeah, even Indy looking like cotton candy and, smacks of that.
Right. I mean, it's and as we said before, so many of these experiences are absurd to the absurd degree. I mean, so absurd, so alien that they are ridiculous. And that goes from a cotton candy dog to a black shrouded man to, little green men.
To the fact that we can't even figure out how absurd it is until 20
later.
years later, or at all. Or
right.
The fact that Giorgio Tsoukalos' hair is still doing, Ancient Aliens. And talking about these things in terms of something that's been here forever, and then again in the next breath talking about the things that they can't understand, like how not to scare a child. Right. And let's just add one more thing about the ridiculousness that Giorgio Tsoukalos, and again, this is not to slam him. It's just, let's point this out, the hair thing. That this is what is considered presentable. Like, this is how we're going to get our point across that all of this is to be taken seriously. Is I have this spokesman for Ancient Aliens make himself famous by his ridiculous hair.
He's also orange.
And that he's orange and he looks like he's been stung by bees.
Orange. It's orange, actually.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's not orange. Orange.
But you get the point. It's like, hey, no offense, Giorgio, but this isn't exactly the way to get people to take it seriously, and yet this is what's on as the serious thing. So, I mean, does that all go into the trickstery, bizarre realm of this, or is that just a coincidence?
Well, it certainly appears to be working, right? I mean, I don't know about taken seriously, but certainly taken. So... I mean, I don't think you can argue with success in that respect. I mean, it's the message is getting out there to people. The problem is that the message is getting out there to people. And
well, but it's the same thing that you brought up, in the George Hansen trickster element of like with ghost hunters. Yeah, it's getting out there, but then you've always got the fallback point, like who's going to believe some plumbers?
Right.
They're not scientists. Right. And so again, it's like, who's really going to take Giorgio Tsoukalos seriously enough to study it? How about that? It's serious enough. It gets out there and it sort of gets into the culture and people have conversations about it and it bubbles up in that sort of pop culture popularity way, but not in any formal, serious study way.
Yeah. I mean, well, I agree with you. I mean, as far as the ancient aliens thing, I don't think that any really serious archaeological individual is going to take that serious. I think it's been done 6 ways from Sunday. I actually think that the archaeologists, in no small part, have actually looked into the claims of von Däniken and other people, and I think we go right back to the antiquities paintings of like Jesus on the cross, Jesus baptism, all these things with ufological imagery in them. And people say, look, there's UFOs in the 16th century frescoes and all this sorts of thing, and all of these, I mean, have been really well shown to be hats and manifestations of what is to be looked at as angels. And the odd part is you'll never see these depictions shown really up close, because when you see them up close, they're clouds with wings and angel faces on them. They only look like UFOs from a distance, in many cases. But even when you're talking about the ancient aliens thing, I mean, Graham Hancock did a presentation, I believe it was in Egypt. And Zawi Hawass, former Minister of Antiquities for Egypt, walked out in disgust, would not debate him one iota because he brought up one single person's information. And Zawi Hawass became completely enraged. Said, I won't even discuss this. This is absurd. And I think, frankly, this is the outlook on most of these people, most of these archaeologists who hold serious water in academe. They're not going to take any of this kind of stuff seriously at all.
Outside of John Mack, has any paranormal study that you know of had a quote-unquote serious person as its spokesperson? And you can say whatever you want about John Mack and hypnosis, but no, I know, but but he was the head of Harvard, and so that did hold some water in circles and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
But you know what I mean? I mean, like ancient alien, the precursor to ancient aliens was like Leonard Nimoy, right? In Search of, and
right, in Search of, right.
Yeah. So has there ever that you know of? Has there ever been anyone that you would go, oh, that's a serious person who is the representative of this stuff on television?
Ooh. I think that the later shows that I watched that I found to be interesting were shows like Sightings and Encounters. I mean, you no doubt remember both of those. They had a central host or a panel of hosts, but really the people taking possession of the stories or the accounts or the footage that they were showing were the people who shot them. And so, people ask me, when you think of Gulf Breeze, who do you think of? And I don't think of Ed Walters. I think of people like Bruce Morrison, who I think, to a lot of people who are even semi-familiar with the Gulf Priest case, they don't know who that is. But the guy cataloged more sightings down there than I think most people dare to imagine. And some of it, very interesting stuff. A lot of the Bubba, but some other things too. I think there are people that represent this in different forms, but I don't think anybody, like an academic or a scientist or anything like that, has ever held sway with it being the voice of saying there's something here, there's something up. I mean, you want to say Jacques, that's it. I mean,
and none of the pop physicists from Kaku onward who have become popular, or actually probably what's his name, who I can't really stand, but Bill Nye the Science Guy,
right.
from him on, because I think he came before Kaku as sort of the face of pop science. But none of them are crazy. none of them are dressing their hair up and doing orange face and
oh no,
making it about them in a way, I mean, you can say that maybe some of them are arrogant and it's about them that way, but not in this like Carney Barker way. And they're presenting some really, I mean, if you look at some of the theoretical physics, some really whacked out theories that there's no evidence for, and at all. They just string theory. Oh, there's no evidence, but I'm just fine with that. Oh, well, great. You can say that because you have a degree under your belt. But Giorgio Tsoukalos can't afford to say that, because he doesn't. There's no degree in ancient aliening.
Right.
So, you would think that the least he could do is not, go under the tanning bed until he's orange, and do something to, but maybe he can't help it. Maybe if it's not him, you cut off that Hydra head, another one grows in its place, and it's some other ludicrous, unreal person, but it doesn't go that way in other fields. It just seems to go that way in these fields. And these are the ones that are screaming to be taken seriously. That's the irony of it.
Right. I mean, I think that when it comes to, I mean, this came up on UFO updates on Facebook the other day. Something along the lines of James Carrion posting that MUFON should take its 40 best cases and submit those essentially for peer review to PsyCop, or CFI as it's known now. And basically a fundamentalist skeptic group, to have their cases basically peer reviewed. Like, show me the best you got and let's see what we end up with at the end. And I said, well, my response to that was, well, James, that kind of says that you think that MUFON wants better. And they don't. Because why would they? They've been doing just fine for what? How many years? How many decades now? They don't, that's not on their itinerary to do better. To make things more airtight, they're interested in basically making Hangar One and selling T-shirts. I mean, this is strictly speaking from my standpoint. I don't see these guys doing anything. It is all personality driven when you get right down to it, and I think that's, again, one of the reasons why we wanted to do this show, because we have no personality. Just because that's, it's so unproductive. It's so rehash over and over and over the same thing until it feels real enough to call it the truth. That's not, I don't think that's what either of us have ever been about trying to set about doing. So, I mean, I think when you talk about Giorgio, or I can name 10 others, it's about personality. It's about other goals other than what they're doing. I mean, what they're doing is part of their gig, but it's their gig. It's not really like.
Do you not see that as part of the trickster element to it?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, there's a reason why people like Jacques Vallée don't have a TV show and Giorgio Tsoukalos does. Oh yeah, yeah, I absolutely see it as that. I mean, there's absolutely a reason why that there are really good UFO cases out there that you've never seen on television. What have you seen on television? The Stevenson stuff? How many times? My God, I mean, how many times do we have to sit through cases that have long been dismissed and long been thrown out for them to show up on a new television program? Really? I don't think that's by accident. I think that they see the sensationalistic aspect of it and they go with it. They go, this is good. This will get people to tune in. This is just outrageous enough. But I think that's no accident, that it's that way. I think these cases are deliberately sensational to gain attention, to gravitate attention away from what should be looked at, which is less dramatic, less, no less amazing, but a lot more weird, number one, and so therefore a lot less saleable.
All right. Well, maybe that is the good place to leave it for this introductory episode, which not only went longer than I expected, but actually I didn't even think we'd be talking about anything. I thought we'd just be warning the audience that, you're going to pay for this and we'll build a community later.
We can go on. Yes.
So, yay, I'm glad. All right. Well, we will... Anti-structural. Will we be back next week? We will, right?
I think probably so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got enough stuff to go for quite a while. All right. Until next week, leave us your feedback. See, I still don't have a website in front of me, so I don't know, outside of the Facebook page, Paratopia Facebook page, how are people leaving us feedback?
Yeah, I think we should really mention at this part in the show that right now we have nothing. I mean, literally, we have nothing. We have no website. We have no nothing. We got a name. Oh, we got a name, but we have no website. So by the time you're listening to this, the website will be up, and we will certainly put a form in there for feedback. Sure, absolutely. That's easy. That's an easy thing.
Great. So go find that.
But but you'll find this show and a feedback thing and a place to, be alerted to our email list where you can be added to be made aware of. And I promise you, there's not going to be any sales pitch. We're not going to beg you for money. We're not going to deluge your email box with anything other than, hey, it's us. There's a new episode out. Come get it. That's it. That's what the email is going to consist of. And so, things I would like to know from feedback. Would you want a message board again? Would you want that? If you do, great. If you don't, no problem. Do you want to just use Facebook as the message board? It seems to work. That's the kind of feedback we're looking for. So if you have something also to present on the website that you feel you could keep in a, somewhat regular manner, like blogging or artwork or music or what have you, let us know, because we're going to be kind of trying to integrate that at some point in the future. We want to have some names to call from, so that will be good, right?
Yeah. In fact, that Toilet Elf comic book that's on our Facebook page, that better be coming to Paratopia.
Absolutely. And Joe Gooch music. That's right. So there you are.
Very good. All right. Well, Jeff, good to reunited, and it feels so good. Is that what we're calling this one? That's right.
Jesus. Yeah. You look like you stink, Jared. Do you stink?
A little bit. The whole time you were talking about your big fat dog, I was like, it better not be sitting in my fart chair.
The fart chair is long since gone.
Oh.
Yes.
Sad day.
Yes.
All right, Jeff, get thee to bed. Paratopia, peace out. We will see you next week. Thank you again for joining us these many years later, and perhaps for many years to come.
Good night.